my Zoom, so.
Yeah, I'm just looking at something.
Take place until after the approval of the project. So, you know, we can review that cost, but that's again, small dollars. The PV analysis, there may be some benefit to do that during the schematic design phase, which we're in now. So what we're looking for, I guess what I would propose is that we approve Thornton Tomasetti to complete the schematic design and PV analysis portion of this, which would amount to Medfield's cost of $13,000 and Eversource cost of $8,000. And so we wouldn't do, if we talk to Eversource and Thornton Tomasetti and that PV analysis isn't needed until design development, we just won't spend it. But I would like to get the approval in place just to be able to have that flexibility if we need to do it during schematic design. So that's sort of my 2 cents on that. I don't know if anybody disagrees. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the Thornton Tomasetti proposal? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Thornton Tomasetti proposal as presented with the note that we will only be proceeding with schematic design and PV analysis at this time. Not all at once.
Yeah, this is Walt. I can make that motion.
I'll second it, Mike.
Okay, we get a motion from Walt Kincaid and a second from Mike Weber. All right, running down the list. Mike Weber,
Yes.
Walt Kincaid,
Yes.
Tom Erb,
Yes.
Anna Mae O'Sheabrook,
Yes.
Jeff Marsden,
Yes.
Leo Brem,
Yes.
Mike Marcucci,
Yes.
and Mike Quinlan also votes yes.
Mike, just a quick question on that.
Yep.
Will you be signing that document, or will I, or how are we gonna handle that?
That's a good question. Christine, maybe you can answer that. I mean, I'm fine signing it as chair of this committee if that's acceptable to you. Or does it need to be the schools? I don't, either one I think is fine, but you tell me if there's one that's preferred.
I think the committee can vote to authorize you to sign it.
Okay. Do we need a formal vote to authorize me to sign it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Who would like to make a motion to authorize Mike Quinlan to sign the Thornton Tomasetti proposal?
So moved, Anna Mae.
All
I'll
right.
second that.
Get a second from Tom. All right, running down the list. Mike Weber,
Yes.
Walt Kincaid,
Yes.
Tom Erb,
Yes.
Anna Mae O'Sheabrook,
Yes.
Jeff Marsden,
Yes.
Leo Brem,
Yes.
Mike Marcucci,
Yep.
and Mike Quinlan also votes yes. All right. Actually, I owe you all apology. I meant to say something before we opened the meeting and I completely forgot. I did mention it on Monday night, and I would be remiss if we didn't discuss it here tonight. But on Monday, we were notified that a former member of the Permanent Building Committee, Lou Fellini, passed away. And Lou was a great guy and true gentleman, and served the building committee well for years, as well as served the town of Medfield on the Council of Aging for many years as well. And he will be missed. So our thoughts go out to his family. And if you wouldn't mind entertaining just a quick motion of silence in remembrance of Lou Fellini. All right, thank you. Sorry, that was a little out of order, but Lynn, what do we have up next? Lynn?
You're muted.
No, yeah. You can't hear you. No.
Her
Can you
mic's
put-
gone again.
If you put the agenda up, Lynn, I can. Actually, I think next on the agenda, I'll pull it up. Next on the agenda was the Archaeological Survey. If I
Yeah, that's
remember
right.
correctly.
Yeah, Mike, we wanted to get a vote on the approval of PAL's proposal.
Hold on one second. I'm just gonna open up the agenda so we can review this since we've lost Lynn's microphone.
Okay.
Bear with me for just a moment. All right. So I'll just do a quick overview on this. If people have questions, please raise them. As we've discussed at length in the past, the Wheelock site does sit in an archaeological district. And when we submitted to Mass Historic, as expected, they asked us to embark on a archaeological survey to confirm any presence of possible artifacts. We had Left Field reach out to two people, two firms that are capable of doing this work. PAL, Public Archaeology Laboratory, came in with the lowest proposal. But the other benefit with PAL is not just the cost, but they actually consulted the town in the creation of the district, so they're very familiar with this area and have spent much time here. So this survey amounts to $16,207. And then if you could just scroll up to the scope, basically it's a series of test digs where they dig some test pits around the site, and then they just confirm, what if anything would need to be preserved or if further surveying is needed. Both PAL and Gray and Pape, which was the other one, did note that the location of the siting of the building is based on our geotech borings is about 4 feet of fill, which basically means that it's been disturbed in the past and there's it's not soils that are consistent with the site. So it was basically, I'm assuming that happened when the Wheelock School was built, but the first 4 feet being fill is areas that they're not really concerned about because it's already been dug up and replaced. So those are even areas that they probably will not explore, but they do carry. Can you flip up to the quantities, Lynn? Just the number of test pits. I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 90. Can you go to the previous page? Yeah. No, up task. I think it's task. Yeah, task 3. Yeah.
Yeah, there's 50 there and then 40
Yeah.
for the soccer fields.
Right. So there'd be basically 90 test pits dug around the site, and they would do their full, as well as their full historic and archival review. They would perform, lab processing, etc., and issue a report for completion of this work. That report, of course, would be copied to Medfield Historic Commission and the Mass Historic Commission. So, by the way, also, just as an FYI, PAL is engaged, I believe is engaged with the water treatment project through the DPW. And so they will be exploring that area down there as well. So there's a benefit to having the consistency of a single consultant. I think that's also one of the reasons why their cost proposal was less, because they're already potentially engaged with the town. So, any questions on this proposal?
What's the timing of it?
That's what I was gonna ask.
So there's no set schedule, but basically we would need to wait for the ground to thaw. So it's likely going to be March, April timeframe. Late March, early April would be my estimation.
So we don't need it by then, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So, you know, basically we would hopefully get a report, say, towards the end of April to early May. And then we'd be able to react to that report if there's additional surveying that's needed, or if, you know, they find something that would need preservation before we started any construction on the site. And then the benefit of doing it this early is that if they do identify anything that's that needs preservation, we would still have at least a full year to be able to do that work prior to construction of the project while construction documents are being completed.
Mike, what's the typical lead time on that? Will they give us a few days heads up before they show up? Just thinking in terms of recess.
Oh, of course,
and-
of course, especially, yeah, I mean, especially given the amount of time we have between signing them up and when they'd be on site. You know, we could make sure that there's plenty of notice. And actually what we would probably do is we may even look at, you know, scheduling around any school activities. So, but for the most part, you know, again, I think they're not going to be doing much within the footprint of the building because that's all fill. It's probably going to be other areas, roadways and fields that they're going to be doing.
Okay, thanks.
But yes, absolutely, there'll be plenty of notice and time to plan it before anybody shows up at site. Any other questions on this? All right. If not, one thing to note. This consultant will flow through left field. So there will be a markup on their proposal for left field to be able to manage that. So we should just be aware of that. We'll do an amendment to left field's contract to absorb this. So the 16,207 would come with a markup from left field to be able to manage that. That's 10%, right, Jim?
Yes. Hey, Mike, can I also ask you a favor? Would you mind promoting Lynn as a panelist? She's on the phone at 508-269.
Yep, sure.
Thank you.
Well, I can't promote a phone call. What I can do is allow her to talk. So,
okay.
Which I've done. Oh, it looks
Thanks,
like
Mike.
looks like Tim is here too.
Can you hear me?
We can hear
Yeah.
you.
Oh, good, good. Finally got that to work. I did want to say that one of our questions from the PSR comments from MSBA was the timeline of the field investigations. And so I put together a schedule from that based on what I read in PAL's proposal. And it looks like it takes the maximum time that they had allotted for each phase. We could be submitting our technical report to the Mass Historical Commission on July 5th. I'm hoping that we can do a little bit better than that so that we can have a response back from the Mass Historical Commission prior to our submission of the PSR, which will be, I think, July 7th.
You mean schematic design, not PSR, correct?
Oh, sorry, schematic
That's right.
design, you're right.
Just wanted to make sure we were clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we engage them, we should talk about, get on the phone with them and really drill down on the schedule. See what we can do.
Based
to
on the-
expedite things.
Yeah, based on the schedule I put together, it looks like by no later than March 21st, we should know if there's any issues. And then I think it takes like 45 days after that date to submit the technical report.
Okay.
So I think we should have enough time to determine if we have a problem prior
Sure.
to submission.
Good. Tim, just, I don't know how much you heard of that, but we're just reviewing the Archaeological Survey proposal from PAL. Don't know if you had any questions or comments on it.
No, but I haven't read it either, so I'm sure a lot of other people have. No, I don't, I mean, is it moving forward, I assume, or?
Yeah, well, that's what we're are looking for a vote to approve the proposal. 16,207 plus left field's markup. So approximately 17,800 and change. If anybody else has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve left field to engage PAL based off of their proposal and scope of services.
So moved.
All right, I got a motion from Leo Brem. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that you, Mike?
Yep.
So I've got a motion from Leo and a second from Mike Weber. Running down the list, Mike Weber,
Yes.
Walt Kincaid,
Yes.
Tom Erb,
Yes.
Anna Mae O'Shea Brook,
Yes.
Jeff Marsden,
Yes.
Leo Brem,
Yes.
Mike Marcucci,
Yep.
and Tim Bonfati.
Yes.
And Mike Quinlan also votes yes.
Okay, next on the agenda is the MSBA comments from the preferred schematic report. I just received Air Street's responses today. I'm just about complete with the responses that left field was going to provide. I know there's a few that Jeff needs to provide as well. Jeff, I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at it or not.
Yes, we'll have it by Thursday to you.
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yes. The week's flying by. Yes, tomorrow.
I know, I feel the same way. Okay, yes, and Leftfield will collect those and put them all into one document, and we'll pass that around for everybody to take a look at if they want to look at them. There wasn't anything major in the comments, just clarifications and requests for information on things that we had provided in the PSR, but you'll all get a chance to take a look at our responses prior to our submission to MSBA on Monday, the 8th. Okay, next on the agenda is a recap of the Facilities Assessment Subcommittee meeting that we had on January 20th. That's where we made the presentation of the feasibility study and our preferred option G1. Also, as part of that, I will say that the Facilities Assessment Subcommittee had a lot of good things to say about our preferred option and had, commended Air Street on their efforts and how it tied to the educational program. After we made the presentation of the preferred option, we went into a discussion on model schools. They provided us with 5 model schools to take a look at. And I think just a couple of days ago, we received the actual packages of all the schools for Jeff to take a look at it. And I'm not sure you've had a lot of opportunity to take a look at it, Jeff, but do you have any comments on the schools that they provided?
I do, yeah, thanks, Lynn. So I guess I want to frame my comments around, three things that we learned at the FAS. One around the incentives being gone in the model school, which I think is a really important point that we have to consider, is that, prior to this, there were financial incentives to participate in this program, and now those incentives aren't around anymore. In terms of what the feedback was, MSBA was very positive on the alignment with the education plan and design. And then the other piece is that we've been told that during this entire process that the goal of the work we've done the last year and a half is to develop an education plan and then design a building around that, and not the other way around. So I think that's just a really important piece to consider as we look at this proposal. So I do have some comments about some of the schools. I've been able to visit some of the model high schools in the past, Whitman Hanson, Natick, Franklin, Norwood, all very nice buildings. And I've only visited one elementary model school, which is the Freeman Kennedy in Norfolk. So I went off of some of the plans that were sent to us, and I do have some comments on the Bancroft, the Freeman Kennedy, and Esther Brook. The Bancroft School in Andover, again, not really in line with what our plan is. It has 3 floors, not really situated in neighborhoods, which is a really big thing as part of our design. The feedback we got from staff and the community was the goal was to make a larger school feel small and do this with learning neighborhoods and pods and that kind of thing. And we didn't really see that in Bancroft. There was no main street, so to speak. And that's what I know MSBA talked about, how they really liked the concept of Main Street, where there was a single main street with administration and other key areas right off that, and then going into the classroom instruction areas. Bancroft, like the other schools that we've seen in the model school, all have an undersized gym from what we have. They all have, I think, 6,000 square foot gyms. Our plan has a 9,000 square foot gym. The media center wasn't great there in terms of location. And then the 3-floor design isn't what we're looking for. If we were looking at the 3, 4, 5 like we were originally, then this would be something maybe to consider. But with only 2 grades going in there, the 3 floors really didn't seem to make much sense in the model. It does have 30 classrooms, and we only need 26, so you'd have to adjust those 5 kindergarten classrooms to make them smaller. And they all have bathrooms in them typically too, so we don't need that, so we'd have to reduce the size. And again, the school in general is a lot bigger than what the Dale Street needs to be. I know one of the things that we had talked about too is that it has the enclosed mechanical penthouse, which Arrow Street has talked to us too, that MSBA hasn't been really positive about that part of the design. So, again, back to the different dimensions with the no bathrooms. We don't need the bathrooms like the kindergarten classrooms do. So it's a K to 5, and that's not the biggest deal in the world. We can adjust that, but there would be a lot of plan design around those kindergarten rooms and making sure they fit into a 4 or 5 versus the larger size that kindergarten rooms typically are with the bathroom. Looking at the Freeman Kennedy. So again, I've been there several times. It's a 3 to 6 building, so more in line with what we've talked about. Again, the design doesn't really fit our vision in terms of how we did the neighborhoods and the learning spaces and the breakout rooms, just not really there. Really narrow corridors. I've been in there several times. No main street, not enough breakout spaces. I would say the positive out of that building, one of the things that came out of our community, our outreach and some of the visioning sessions we had, is that people really wanted the school as a teacher. That was something that came up numerous times. And I think Freeman Kennedy does a really nice job of that. There are multiple ways for students to interact with real-time energy usage and energy generation that happens with a solar panel. So that's kind of a neat concept there, where it's right in the center. Kids can look and they can see in real time how much energy is being saved, what's being used, and what's being generated. So that was a positive. Again, a really small gym over there, not enough breakout spaces, and we didn't get a lot of the plans with that. So I just went on my own visit and what I saw there. And then the last one that I comment on is the Esther Brook in Lexington, also a K to 5 building. Additionally has those 5 kindergarten classrooms, which we don't need. Again, not a huge deal, but you'd have to make changes to design for that. The dining area at Esther Brook was almost 3,000 feet smaller than what we're looking for at Dale. Dale, we're looking for a 4,000 square foot dining area. Excuse me, it's only 2,700 square feet, so not 3,000 smaller, but just the size is a lot smaller there. a kind of a funny design. It has the gymnasium on the second floor, which, you know, we looked at it and didn't know really what we would use the space for underneath. I guess classrooms, but it wasn't really, you know, a great design there.
They have their cafeteria under the gym
Right. So we don't know how we would do that, but
and a music space.
and to your point on the music space, the music space at Estabrook was a lot smaller than what we needed at Dale. You know, certainly in our design and our vision, we have an area for the full ensemble to practice, and that really wasn't something that we could do at Estabrook. And then in terms of the instructional design around classrooms, they put their classrooms in pairs and then a breakout room between. We're trying to look at having it in teams of 3 to 4 with breakout rooms. And then Estabrook also has that long linear hallways. You know, it's kind of a linear building and with narrow hallways where we want to make sure we have enough space that we can have groups of kids outside working in the hallway, working out the breakout spaces. So we found it was kind of limiting in that regard. And, you know, just from the overview of what we looked at in these 3 buildings, it feels like there'd have to be a lot of adjustments made to what our vision, our design is, you know, just to incorporate that in one of these model schools. So I guess that's, you know, with Steve, Michael and I took a look at it. That was some of the initial thoughts that we had. And again, I want to go back to the fact that at the FAS meeting, and I know those of you that do this for a living, I'm not sure you had as a positive FAS meeting as you had with us during that time, in which MSBA said that our education plan should be a model for other districts building an elementary school, which I'm not sure you hear that very often from MSBA. So that was pretty positive. And then following that with the alignment of that plan to the design for Arrow Street. So it seems like we spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money in the last year and a half to get to a point where MSBA was very impressed at the FAS meeting. And it feels like going backward based on, you know, looking at the model school program and the limitations that they have for us. So that's just kind of my thoughts around that.
I will say also that MSBA has decided to make the model schools go through the feasibility study phase, which they didn't in the past. This was just decided at their last FSA meeting because they had some issues with making the model schools align with the programs that were trying to use them, the educational programs for the districts that were trying to use them. And now they're going to make the model schools go through the feasibility study process, which, you know, again, kind of you lose the benefit of being able to accelerate and get to the market quicker, which would have been one of the opportunities of the model school. I don't know if you guys would like to take a look at the floor plans of the model schools. I do have them up on the screen. I can put them on the screen if you'd like to see each of them.
I think that'd be helpful for those that weren't at the FAS meeting then.
Okay, I had asked for the presentation that they gave us, but I never got it from MSBA. But this is, let's see, this is the Bancroft Elementary School. It's a star shape.
It's not up on the screen, Lynn.
Okay, hold on.
There we go.
Got it? Okay.
Yep.
This is the Bancroft Elementary School, and this is done by SMMA. And as Jeff said, it's a 3-story school. It's a star shape similar to ours, but it is 3 floors, and which is not as convenient for an elementary school as opposed to a 2-story maximum option.
So I've taken some clients on a tour of this project. It's actually a nice project considering the restrictions on the site. It's a very narrow site that gets access from sort of the north and the south. So in terms of the solution for Andover, I think it's a pretty good solution given how tight the site was, but it definitely presents challenges by going to 3 floors. And one of the qualifications, Lynn, was that proceeding with this, the MSBA would require us to eliminate the mechanical penthouse, correct?
Right, which we would have to find somewhere else to put it. But one of the years, this one had the media center on the second floor, and art and music on the third floor. So
And this-
there's some challenge in making this one.
When was this designed, Lynn? I know this goes back quite a few number of years.
I want to say it was 2012.
Yeah.
20.
That sounds about right.
20, well, it looks like maybe 2014, but in that time frame.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the SMMA school. This one is the Raymond Design Associates Model School. They actually bought
Hey,
out
Mike.
Night Bag.
Sorry, Mike, in those classrooms, sorry, Lynn, in each one of those classrooms there too, those are like, that's like a banquette of millwork there that kind of sticks off the wall, right? The cubbies.
Cubbies, yep.
Yeah,
That's
so
correct.
it protrudes into the classroom.
That's
in that
correct.
sense. Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, Lynn, you still have Bancroft up, just FYI.
Sorry, Lynn.
Did you see all the plans as I scrolled through them on
No,
Bancroft?
no, we
Oh,
only saw one floor plan, or I only saw one.
I was scrolling through all the floor plans. I'm sorry about that.
So,
I can go back to it, but this is the RDA Memorial Elementary School. They bought out Night Bag Anderson, who originally submitted this application for the model school. It's a two-story structure. Kind of not all that interesting of a facade, but you can make the wings go either direction, away from the entrance or sort of wrap toward the entrance.
Well, it's even older, Lynn, than the Bancroft, right? I think this opened in 2011 or 2012.
Right, it opened in 2012, you're right. Okay, and then the next one is the Danisco School, the Esther Brook School in Lexington. And this one is a very compact, linear school. And it's 3 stories as well.
So I also took a client to this school for a tour, the town of Ashland, and you know, my personal take is this is not a very good school. You know, it doesn't function very well, in my opinion, and even some of the teachers that were on the tour were complaining about it. So not exactly the best endorsement from the town and the people that actually live and work in this building.
Tour it with Donna Danisco, the architect.
I'm sorry?
Looks like they trimmed
Did you
off
tour
the
it with
classroom.
Donna or?
No.
Oh, okay.
We toured it with the principal and a couple of teachers. We asked some questions along the way.
Because we actually toured it a couple of years ago for another school with the architect that designed it. And she was giving us the background that this school was designed and built in 3 years because of problems with the existing building. So she said it was a very rushed design. Just as an FYI.
It seems that way. The drop-off sequence is awful here. They've got 2 lanes, one for buses, one for cars, that students are overlapping. So you have kids that are getting dropped off in a travel lane. And they have to have all this staff out there to monitor it. It's really, really a bad drop-off sequence.
Yeah, I'm not
I will
thrilled
say
with
what-
the design of the classrooms either. That was tough design. Where it's stretched out, that 900 square feet gets stretched out in a long manner.
It's a very tight, long site. So it's really the only place they could put the building on the existing site.
I will say
But
one
also
positive
the-
thing, which is the art rooms are very beautiful, but I
That
agree
is-
with the
that is-
earlier comments.
That is true. Yeah, I mean, on the positive side, the art rooms are great because they're up and they overlook a beautiful view to I believe the west. And then they also have, it does have a nice play area, and the cafeteria spills out nicely into the site. So that was another thing that I saw positive.
I will say that the project areas too, in my opinion, become more circulation space. I mean, I mean, they use them as breakout areas, but all the lockers surround the project area. That's the way to get in and out of the two classrooms off that area. To me, it's not as functional as you might like a project area.
Yeah, and you can see, I mean, you've got 2 doors off of each of those areas, but the lockers kind of form L's on either side, which means the natural travel pattern from the door to the exit out to the hallway is right through the middle, which means if you put any furniture in them that could be used for a breakout space, it becomes really difficult because when those kids spill out into that area and their lockers, it's really challenging. And the other thing is there was definitely a big disconnect from one end of the corridor to the other. And so each of these, 2 classrooms are grouped together, but there was really a disconnect between each of those pods and the rest of the kids.
And this one has the gymnasium on the 2nd floor, and we wouldn't be able to have our oversized gymnasium with this design. This one's only a little less than 6,000 square feet, and we were looking for 9,300.
And just a reminder,
Okay,
this is also 3 stories, correct?
Correct. So that was the Esther Brook. This one is the Lincoln Elementary School, which is Mount Vernon. And
That gym looks tiny.
Yeah,
That's
it's around
gym a cafetorium.
Oh, is that a gymatorium? Yeah.
It's
Oh, so
a two
I see.
structure. But very utilitarian, classrooms on each side of the corridor, nothing special. And the last one is the Blandsburg School, which is, forget the name of this school.
Freeman Kennedy.
Freeman Kennedy.
Oh, yeah, no, this one. Jeez. The Freeman Kennedy School. And it's 2 stories. So that's a quick overview of the schools that were available.
They do have a really cool playground outside for anybody who's looking for one. It's with squishy surface.
Yeah, there's no shortage of playgrounds in Norfolk, that's for sure.
So
I'm doing a courtyard area out in that particular school too, off the media center.
So, we've heard from Jeff. I'm really interested to hear if people have other thoughts on this. I can tell you that, we've had multiple conversations. I've really tried to obtain real data about the savings, the supposed savings that Marlboro realized, and was told I'd be able to get it, but to this date, I still have not been able to receive it. I know that they say that they're saving 11 million, and so I really wanted to see where that savings was, and I haven't been able to get any of the cost data from their 2 different designs, so we can really understand that. So the long and the short of it is I haven't been able to identify any savings that's non-speculative other than just reduction in architect's fees. And there's a challenge in that if we're to do any sort of customization, or if we want to pursue net zero, or even just, bringing some of these buildings into more current energy codes, there will be required some design changes to these plans. I've really struggled with identifying what the potential is for savings beyond just the fees for the architects and the OPMs. The OPM fee reduction is a much smaller amount. So I've kind of been struggling with a little bit of where that savings was. I know in the presentation on Marlboro, I started to push them on it, but was never got a clear answer. But every conversation that I've had, including, some people that were involved with that project, is that this cost savings had less to do with the model school program than it did have to do with bringing on an architect that gave them a more efficient design. What I would note is that one of the ways I know that they saved money is their original design was laid out inefficiently on the site, and as such, they had a roadway that was going through a wetland to the high school, which is nearby that site, to a parking lot, and it was a fairly long roadway through a wetland. So I can tell you alone, that's probably $3 million they saved just by eliminating that. But that's not a product of going to a model school. It was a product of really getting their design more efficient. So I was hoping to be able to really get some real analysis between their two designs to figure out where they really saved all the money. Unfortunately, that data just wasn't forthcoming. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, well, one other thing I want to reflect back what Dr. Marsden was saying too about some of the key factors in those buildings. Where we've been looking at our program that based on the community feedback and everything, and very simple things too that our community would really need, to in a new building. That I feel like if we went with one of the model schools and we got in there and we were still storing our instruments in the hallways because we didn't have the predetermined instrument storage, where our music program is so robust, particularly at Dale Street School, that I feel like there would be just that frustration. Like, we just built the school and we didn't build in enough storage for the instruments, which I know is a huge deal for the, especially for Dale today even. And things like the gymnasium, our parents like to stay and watch. And, we went and visited a school where parents wouldn't even be able to stand in the gym, to watch their kids play in some of these schools. So there's just a lot of those community-based items that just right off the top that would really be limited in those choices. And not to mention, I just can't imagine a 3-story building on the Wheelock site. So I just think it would just be this monstrosity that would be dwarfing the Wheelock school. And it would just, whereas kind of the design we have, and this is aside from the money, I understand trying to save money 100%. But just I feel like, if the town were to put such investment into a building, whether it's any of these designs, I feel like that, it's something we're going to have to live with for the 50 years, like they had said, right? And so we want it to be as useful for that 50 years. And so that's why I'm echoing all that feedback from Dr. Marsden, and when, and all the feedback we got from the community, and even from the kids. I remember Melissa Roder's children were at one of those meetings kind of giving feedback what they wanted to see, my kids still want a pool, just going to put that in there. They want a pool in the school. So, so those are just my comments around it and some of the thinking that's behind this too. But I understand the fiscal responsibility, and if they were giving more points for it, like if they were incentivizing this,
right.
I would understand more.
So part of the reason, there's 2 reasons why they got rid of the incentive. One was that they weren't seeing the cost savings that they were expecting. So that should be noted, that they just weren't seeing that somehow this approach was saving them as much money. Now, things ebb and flow a little bit, but the other reason they got rid of it is because they were seeing less of a tie to educational plans and more to cost alone. And so communities potentially could be building a building that is where decision-making priority is made solely on money instead of their educational plan and educational vision. So, you know, there's certainly some benefits to the idea of standardization. Certainly, you know, there are some things about all of these schools that I think would work for the town of Medfield. I struggle personally with seeing how it would be some sort of big benefit. I don't see that. I don't see the savings as being significant enough to really sort of upend the apple cart here and bring in a new architect who doesn't know our community, who hasn't heard all of the things that we've been saying for a year and a half, that the town has been saying, and hasn't had a chance to interact at all with our administration and our teachers. You know, if it were significant enough, then I could say, put a number on it, that it was an order of magnitude less expensive, then it definitely would be worth exploring further in my eyes. But right now I can't say that because I just don't see it based on the conversations that I've had to date. I don't know if anybody else had any thoughts on the model school program.
Yeah, if I could, Mike.
Yep, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I did speak with the builder in Marlboro, Dave Fontaine, and he confirmed what you said, that really the savings they got there was just because it was you know, was a well efficiently designed school, and it's a school. They happen to have worked with that architect, so they were comfortable with knowing the details that they do. And but there's no inherent, you know, savings in the design of a model school beyond what you'd get if you designed an efficient school. So, and I'm sure Arrow Street, who, you know, we're working with on other projects, knows how to design an efficient school. I echo Jeff's point. I didn't see, you know, the only school on that model that looked to me to be at all, you know, possibly sort of meeting the ed plan in terms of neighborhoods and sort of the way most elementaries are structured these days, is the sim school, you know, that wasn't sort of that linear school. So there was one that I think probably would be worth looking at, would be that sim school. But, you know, when you can only count on the architect savings of 5 or 6%, you know, between the architect and the small amount out of the OPM, I just don't know. I completely agree with what Jeff says. You spend all this time sort of working to get the ed plan the way you want it, to have a lot of the particular aspects to it, and to save what I think in our project might be, you know, what is it, $3 to $4 million or something, if it's that kind of percentage. I don't think it's worth it. I think that we could, you know, we can find other ways to save more than $3 to $4 million by designing an efficient school. And that's the challenge I probably would put to Arrow Street, is just, you know, that I know Larry and his team can do an efficient school because we're working with them on one that's very efficient. And I'm not saying we'd want to do that one, Larry, but I think, and the time savings isn't, you know, the same, the times that you save isn't that sufficient, because like Lynn says, you do go through, when I've done 2 model schools as Compass, and you didn't go through a facilities study approach, but you do now in a schematic design. And, you know, we would have to take probably another 2 months to negotiate a contract and find the right model. And so whatever savings we might get because you don't have to do some of the back end reviews, we'd lose. So you know, that's the other way you can save money on a model school, quicker to market, if you're in an inflationary time period, which there's, you know, most people don't think we're really right there right now. So, you know, based on kind of my thinking, I'm not really supportive of the model school. In Medfield's case, I do think we should be looking at an efficient, cost-effective school. It's not on a main, it's not a showcase because it's somewhat behind a building. There's ways to look at faces of that building and be very efficient around and I would challenge Left Field with Arrow Street to come up with ideas that, you know, where we get the biggest bang for the buck, but we're very efficient in other places around on what we're doing. And I think we can get a better product at basically the same cost by going with the conventional, school. So I'm not in favor of continuing on, with interviews or sort of putting them through the paces, which is another thing. And they end up spending a lot of money trying to, interview for these, and that's really not fair for them if there's not a real commitment to move forward.
Thanks, Tim. Anyone else have any thoughts? Gus, feel free to chime in. I know this is something that we've talked a lot about, and it's something that you were in the same presentation as well. And that's why we have the Board of Selectmen here, so you can speak freely too. So I don't know if now's the right time or.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to do it now, Mike. First, before I even comment on this specifically, one of the questions I have is the MSBA gave us 5 models. I think I've only heard from 4. Does that mean the 5th one was so crappy that we didn't even bother? Like, is that so bad that it wasn't even worth considering?
We should have 5. I don't know if Lynn, if you got all the floor plans maybe, or.
No, we put the 5th one up there. I just don't think we spoke too much about it. I think that was the Freeman Kennedy School.
Oh, yeah.
And
so just
Jeff talked about that one. I must have messed up then. So
we've got Andover, Bancroft, Lexington, Esther, Brook, Freeman Kennedy in Norfolk,
Lincoln Elementary,
Lincoln, and Memorial.
So okay, I guess I didn't hear any comments on Memorial. And so I was curious whether that was because it was so far out of line that it wasn't worthy of any comments. I didn't hear anything on that one. The only reason I asked that question is because my basic question is, how does MSBA figure out what model plans to offer that are basically designed to be suitable for the kind of a school we're looking to build? I agree with the comments that you don't need you shouldn't have a 3-story elementary school, and those 2 3-story elementary schools were on narrow sites. So I'm looking at it saying, so MSBA threw out some models that almost were unsuitable for the circumstances we have, and to no surprise at all, at least those 2 models didn't make the grade. I agree, they don't sound like they're good choices, but just because the overall circumstances don't even justify them. So what's the criteria MSBA uses to offer model schools? Just size or capacity?
I don't know that I can speak to that. I don't know, maybe Lynn, you or Tim, maybe you have more information, but I do know that every now and then people are allowed to apply to be a model school as the architects, so that they can have their designs repeated. But I don't know what the criteria is for acceptance.
No, I mean, what's the criteria MSBA used to recommend these particular designs to us?
They send it out to us, to a peer, Lynn, unless you know something different, I understand they send it out to a peer review architect that sort of used to be STV, that used to look at them and measure their, at least somewhat acceptability to the ed plan, how they would fit on the site characteristics. Without a lot of modification. As far as I know, that's what they do. They get a report.
Well, they take your, when MSB is selecting the schools for you to look at, they take your enrollment, and they look at schools that would fit your enrollment within a 20% swing up or down, because the model schools are supposed to be designed to either increase or decrease space by 20% without very much modification. So they look at that, and if you fall into that enrollment, then they'll select that school. The other thing that they look at is your grade configuration, and because our grade configuration is so unique, they ended up giving us the gamut on the grade configuration side of it. So
okay. Well,
so Gus, I would add one thing, just because they did mention it at the FAS that they hadn't fully completed their analysis, but that they essentially there are only 5 elementary schools in the program right now. And those are the 5 they presented us. And all 5 fit from an enrollment perspective with our design enrollment. So outside of that, I don't believe they did any analysis about site, about.
They did. They just provided us with the analysis yesterday, and basically what it is saying, your school has this many classrooms, this model school has this many, and they note a few things that can't change on the model schools, such as what I had said about the second floor gym on the Estabrook one, or removing the mechanical room penthouses on the Bancroft one. But in general, they did a quick analysis of how the model schools aligned with our educational program, and to be honest, while you could modify them, they're not going to be minor modifications for these schools to meet the Dell Street School educational program. I think it's going to take a good bit of time to try to align it with the educational program that was developed during the PDP phase. And again, which is another reason why they're making the model school programs go back to the whole feasibility study, because people weren't happy at the end of the day because they weren't aligning with the school's educational program.
I would comment that the half-day MSBA session that you and I were at, Mike, I think in December or late November, whenever it was, I'm noting that MSBA was remarkably silent about some of the things that you're talking about here that almost sound like MSBA doesn't even care that much about the model school program. So I find that confusing in terms of what MSBA is trying to accomplish here, because certainly that wasn't the kind of a message that came through in that half-day session.
Yeah, I don't know that there are as many people. They still want to offer it up to towns, and as we've noted previously, in the last 5 years, though, only 3 towns have gotten to the level we're at now. Actually, excuse me, only 2. 3 towns explored it. 2 got to the stage of having to make a decision about whether to pursue interviews. 1 backed out, and then Marlboro has been the only one that actually pursued it. But I don't think they're going to actively try to lobby us one way, one direction or the other. So, some of these concerns that we're raising, if other towns aren't concerned about the same things, they may just accept a model school.
Okay.
And the other thing, Gus, just to mention, the MSBA was going to update their model school list of more current schools. And I think they were setting that site either for February or April of 2020. And then with the pandemic and everything, that went away. So some of these schools are actually fairly old. So that's another issue.
No, I recognize that. Yeah. Even the designs you can see are. Go ahead, Lynn.
Also, the reason for the delay too is they decided they needed to revamp the whole program. So about the process of how they went about it, and
so let me cut to the mustard on what I heard tonight, and this is a question for Jeff. If I take everything that I've heard here about these different designs, the only one that sounded, based on your comments actually, that it even kind of sort of made sense was, I think, the Freeman Kennedy School. And I'm just curious, from an education plan standpoint, a lot of the comments are around aesthetics and things that we would like around aesthetics. From an education plan standpoint, does that design fulfill the requirements of our education plan? That was the exact same question I had for the superintendent of Marlboro when we were at the MSBA session.
Thanks, Gus. So I would say the only reason why I could speak a little more to that in terms of what it looked like is that I've been in that building. I haven't been in the other ones. The other ones were just, looking at the site plans. I've been in the Freeman Kennedy. I think the hallmark of our design is really establishing those 3 to 4 classroom neighborhoods with project-based learning areas, with breakout rooms, all of those things. That's the real hallmark of our education plan. And you really don't get that out of that design. You get the narrow hallways, you get the linear rooms all together with maybe breakout here or there, but it doesn't give you the model that we're looking for in terms of the neighborhood team teaching skills. So we're trying to get pods of 3 to 4 teachers, those teams working together, teams of 4, triads of 3, and working together, and it doesn't fit that one.
Okay. I think at this stage, I hear a pretty clear sentiment here. You all are going to make the decision you make. The one point that I'll make, and Mike has already heard this point, so you're all here, and you might as well hear it from me. Mike's probably conveyed it perhaps, but the concern I've had, the only interest that I had in the model school program was to see whether that was a way to cut the cost of the school down to something that I would consider more affordable. You know, Jeff, you invited me to join the vision committee at the very start, which I appreciated being able to do. I actually enjoyed the meetings, and I understand that when you go through a visioning process, you don't start with constraints. You start with what you want. So it's an unconstrained picture. And I intentionally did my best to allow that to unfold in the direction that it needed to unfold. That doesn't mean that there's no place and time when the constraints come in. And the issue I'm raising is a question of affordability for the town. Mike's heard this from me. I think an $80 million school is insane. For 2 elementary grades. I just do. I just think that's completely crazy on the merits. And then when I think of some of the other financial obligations this town may need to face over the next 10 years on a practical basis, that just adds to my concern. Tim Bonfatti, your words, I obviously have a lot of respect for you and Mike. I appreciated what you had to say. I guess I would reinforce in my mind the importance of the committee finding a way to take some of the cost out of this school and accept your reasoned optimism that that's something that can be done between where we're sitting right now and where we wind up. Leo, for you, I appreciate that you understand where that cost is an issue, but I think we have to go beyond understanding it and then not doing anything about it. So I was happy you commented on that. And I guess I would just encourage the committee, if this isn't the right direction, and I hear the arguments for it, the only interest I had in it was that I was hoping maybe it was an easy path to make some progress on that. It looks like we'll have to figure out how to do that in other ways.
Well, Gus, I agree with you, and I'm hoping that one of the post-pandemic things is they gave incentives during the recession, after the recession, for shovel-ready projects. They actually added some points. I'm hoping that we qualify for that too, in some manner. At least I'm hopeful.
And to be clear, much as I may have an opinion about the total cost of a school, my actual care is what the amount that the town finances is. Yep. So that's where I'm coming from, not the price tag that we don't pay all of.
Yeah. No, so Gus, I appreciate your comments. I know we've talked for many hours on this topic, and I wholeheartedly understand where you're coming from. What I can do is commit to you that we will definitely commit to reducing the overall price tag on this project, just not at the expense of certain things that we hold dear, in terms of, we want to present not just the cheapest possible building, we want to present the least expensive building that achieves the goals that we have. Yep. So that's our charge. If we don't proceed down this route with the model school, we will reinforce that with Arrow Street and left field. I already know of ways, and we'll continue to find other ways to help reduce that cost. I know the goal that you have set for us, and we will work to try to get there. So understand that your thoughts are absolutely valued by this committee and taken care of.
I appreciate the comment, Mike. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to chime in on model school at this point? If not, I think we'd like to take a vote on whether or not to continue with the model school program. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we just continue pursuing the model school option for the Dale Street project.
Second.
We have a motion from Leo Brem and a second from Tim Bonfatti to discontinue down this path with the model school and continue on with Arrow Street. All right. So Mike Weber,
I agree. Yes.
Walt Kincaid,
Yes.
Tom Rowe.
Yes.
No, that was Tom Erb, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, yes, yes.
I thought I heard Brooke at the end.
Anna Mae O'Shea Brook,
Excuse me. Yes.
Jeff Marsden,
Yes.
Leo Brown,
Yes.
Mike Marcucci,
Yep.
Tim Bonfatti,
Yes.
and Mike Quinlan also votes yes. So I pose the question to Pete and Gus. You're certainly welcome to stick around. The main reason I wanted to invite you tonight was to talk about the model schools, given Gus's concerns there. I don't know if you want to close your meeting and have a few extra hours, or if you're certainly welcome to stay.
Well, Mike, if it's going to be a few extra hours, I'm going to leave as well. So
Hopefully it won't be, but we do have probably at least a good hour worth of stuff still to get through if you can bear with us.
So Mike, you've sat there and faced me with this dilemma that says, do I want to make sure Pete stays around for a couple of extra hours by telling him I want us to keep going? Pete, I will defer to your judgment on this. I'm willing to sit here and continue. But if you would like to get that pizza that's been getting cold on your shelf or whatever, I'm more than happy to have us close the meeting and depart.
Yeah, I'm happy to close the meeting at this point, Gus. The model, I was very interested in the model schools issues. And so thank you for letting me hear those. I was hoping that was a solution for the town based on Nick Milano's experience in Marlboro, but it sounds like they're the only ones that ever did anything with it. And from what Tim says, that it really wasn't the model schools. And certainly Jeff's comments about the educational programs not fitting were very convincing. So all in all, I'm satisfied with the evening. So thank you for the education tonight.
And the only condition here is you have to make sure Mike stays to the end so he can tell us anything that happened after we departed.
So I guess we need a motion to adjourn then.
So I will move to adjourn the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Second.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Murby?
Yes.
Marcucci, yes.
Thanks very much, everyone.
See you
Thank
guys.
you all.
Thank you.
Thank you guys all for what you're doing for the town.
Absolutely, Pete.
Absolutely. Take care.
And you as well. All right, so next on our agenda, wanted to discuss a decision that we're going to need to make. I believe we have enough information to make the decision tonight, but if others don't feel that way, we can certainly, I don't think it's something that we need to make tonight, but I did want to have a discussion about construction delivery method. You've heard us speak about CM at risk versus design bid build, or chapter 149A versus chapter 149. Those are the two paths for procuring a builder for this project. And they have different approaches, pros and cons on each side. So Left Field has pulled together a quick presentation on this. We'll go through that and then have a discussion about which direction to proceed in.
Thanks, Mike. This is Jim Rogers from Left Field. I'm going to try to make a quick presentation, as Mike just alluded to lay out some of the differences between design bid build, chapter 149, and construction manager at risk, chapter 149A. So I'll try to go through these quickly. Please, you're welcome to ask any questions as we go. You're welcome to ask questions at the end, whatever you're more comfortable with. And hopefully everyone finishes this meeting a little bit more educated to be able to make a decision one way or the other. So I'll start out by saying the Construction Reform Act of 2004 allowed for the introduction of CM at risk for projects costing $5 million or more. So this was the start of chapter 149A. I actually think, Tim, you might have been a big part of this Reform Act. So I'll throw a shout out to you for your good work there. Lynn, next slide, please.
Yeah, I don't think that presentation's up to, or I'm not seeing it.
We're still seeing the agenda, Lynn.
Jim?
Yes.
Lynn? Lynn?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you. We still just see the agenda on the screen.
I don't know why it's not I'm sharing.
Try unsharing and then resharing. Sometimes that fixes it.
Can you see?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Gina, you want to call it up?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to do it. My Wi-Fi was a little unstable and I fell out, but I think I'm good now. So let me hit share.
I'm happy to put it up if you guys send it to me. I don't have it.
So do you guys see it?
There we go.
There you go.
Okay.
All right, so yep, so that's the slide I started with, talking about the construction reform of 2004, allowing for the introduction of CM at risk for projects 5 million or greater. Next slide, Gina. So I'm going to run through some of the comparisons between the two. So on the left side is the design bid build, chapter 149. On the right side is construction manager at risk. So on the design bid build side, design and construction stages proceed sequentially. It's a lump sum bid. The budget's based on a completed design. The general contractors are pre-qualified. The general contractor or lowest bid is selected. There's no choice. Owner executes lump sum contract with general contractor. Typically there is one bid, but the site prep can be issued separately. I included that as a aspect of design bid build because we might in fact need to do that here. Lynn has run out the various schedules, and what we've learned is the way the schedule lines up for what could be a design bid build bid start would put construction in not a very advantageous spot in the calendar. So we may have to do a site bid package first. So I wanted to highlight that here. On the construction manager at risk side, the CM at risk selected early in the design stage, and the design and construction can overlap for faster schedule occupancy. The construction cost is collaboratively developed. The CM selected based on qualifications and fee. The CM is part of the design process, a partner. The owner negotiates a guaranteed maximum price, and there's the ability for multiple bid packages, multiple early bid packages. Next slide, please, Gina. So back on the design bid build on the left side, it's a competitive non-collaborative process. All changes on a design bid build job results in a change order. The initial costs for this approach are typically 5% lower than a CM at risk, and I'll say that's the initial cost. We'll talk about the final cost in a bit. The general contractor with the lowest bid is selected. Risk equals higher cost. The longer schedule equals higher cost. No ability to select, negotiate with subcontractors, although we can pre-qualify the filed subcontractors. In this instance, all bid savings go to the general contractor. On the construction manager at risk side, it's a collaborative process, non-adversarial, as we said before. The CM during the design results in fewer change orders, so that collaborative process results in fewer change orders overall. There's the ability to accelerate schedule and fewer change orders at the end. Greater ability for risk management, common goals for project schedule, and the ability to select, negotiate more with CM and subcontractors. So that's a little bit about both processes. If we want to talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages next, Gina. So advantages of design bid build, it's a familiar delivery method. It's a simpler process to manage. We get a fully defined project scope for construction. It's a lower initial price, perceived as getting best price by awarding to lowest responsible bidder. One single bid after construction documents are 100% complete. The owner designer can completely control design, and it's fairly simple accounting. We put this because we thought this was germane to this project. It's best suited for projects that are less complicated, that are budget sensitive, but not schedule sensitive and not subject to change. CM at risk advantages, selection based on qualifications, experience, and proposed team rather than lowest price bid. The design phase assistance with budgeting, site logistics, and constructability results in ability to address challenges early. Early cost estimates and feedback to help in the design process results in a more accurate cost model. Allows for multiple early bid packages to accelerate construction schedule. There's typically a higher initial cost, but comparable in the end once acceleration of construction and savings associated with escalation are forecasted. Team concept with the owner, OPM designer. Typically, in this instances, the CMs have a much larger bonding capacity. It's best suited for projects that are time sensitive, challenging to define, or subject to potential changes, projects requiring high construction oversight due to site logistics and phases, as well as multiple stakeholders. Next slide, please, Gina. Disadvantages. Design bid build. It's a linear process, may equate to a longer schedule duration. No choice in the GCs. In the GC, low bid tends to prevail as long as it's low qualified bid. Hard price not known until the bids are received, may require redesign and rebid if bids exceed budget. That's a real schedule issue. Minimal GC project management. Typically the GCs are lower and it's a lower staffing on a design bid build job. No GC input in design, planning, or budgets. They come in after the fact. The designer may have limited ability to assess scheduling and cost ramifications as the design is developed, which can lead to a more costly final product. Typically fosters adversarial relationships between all parties and increases probability of disputes. Prone to changes and claims, which may increase final project cost. And all modifications and change results in change orders with no ability or flexibility within the lump sum bid price. CM at risk requires an OPM or owner with an understanding of the CM process and GMP mechanics. I'll stop there for a moment. What you need to do if you want to go at CM at risk, you do an application to the IG's office. And if you as a team have the requisite experience, the IG will approve you and you'll be able to move forward with a CM at risk project. Left Field has done pretty much, we do almost 100% GMP projects as a firm. So we have the requisite experience needed from the state to do that type of project. There's the potential for higher upfront costs due to filling holes in scope in their documents. The potential adversarial relationship when design intent is challenged, when design to budget or price cutting is pushed, and bidding early requires extra due diligence and covering complete scopes of work. So that's some of the disadvantages of a CM at risk. Next slide, please, Gina. So cost comparison of delivery methods, the cost differentiators, CMR costs, this is chapter 149, includes a change contingency or GMP contingency, and design bid build does not. It's typically 2.5% to 3% of your subcontractor costs is what's representing this internal contingency within the GMP. The construction at risk has pre-construction costs for their involvement during design, which helps ensure that the construction budget is accurate and maintained. And the offset is schedule acceleration typically offsets the higher upfront costs. Next slide, please. Schedule comparison, schedule issues impacting acceleration of schedule. These are all things that we need to weigh as we look at it. Design deliverables, MSBA submission dates, construction start and weather, and the school schedule. These influence on the construction schedule need to be coordinated in order to deliver an accelerated construction schedule. Next slide, please, Gina. So this is a graph that I thought genuinely talked about the impacts in the growth between CMR and DBB. So in these graphs, the blue is the CM at risk and the red is the DBB. And this was a study that was done by the American Society of Civil Engineers, some universities, and what it shows is after during the project, again the design bid build has the lower initial cost, but then there's a higher cost growth because each of the changes outside of each of the changes on a DBB job, design bid build job, are borne outside the contract, while many of the changes on a CM at risk job can be borne inside the contract with the GMP contingency. So there's a greater risk of changes with DBB after the initial bid, which is what this graph is showing. And then because of all the upfront work you did with the CM in a CMR project, there is generally not typically scheduled growth on a CM at risk project on average, and typically there is some schedule growth with a DBB just by the nature of the procurement.
Is this a study, Jim? This is a study done in Massachusetts?
No, it's done by it was Penn State and University of North Carolina and the state of Washington.
No. Was it of construction in Massachusetts? Obviously, I can read who did it.
Yeah, no. Well, no. This is probably nationally.
Okay.
But
Was it all schools?
No.
Was it all public projects?
No.
Yeah.
Oh, it was public, Lynn? You can say it's public?
Yes.
Well, I guess it would be if it's CMR versus design bid build, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but generally, Mike, it was put up there to show what generally happens because of the delivery method. General project risk with both delivery methods, unforeseen conditions for both building and site, incomplete architectural documents, poor or questionable qualifications of subcontractors, subcontractor or trade contractor failures, working on and around occupied facilities, complex site logistics, phasing and occupied sites, less cooperative team environment, inadequate or overstaffed GC or CM or general requirements, and potential bid protests. So those are all risks kind of on both sides, but they are handled differently and mitigated differently just depending on the procurement approach. Next slide. And that's it, guys. So I wanted to highlight, the differences and the pros and cons. We kind of felt it was our job to at least make sure that the town's eyes were open as they entered into this important decision. So I wanted to make sure that you saw what I hope was a comprehensive comparison of the two models. With that said, I'll open it up to any questions.
Yeah, when you talk about changes, are you talking about changes after we broke ground, like change order type?
Yes.
Changes?
Yes.
And so what is the advantage over a change order? Like say we realize we want to add an extra data drop in every classroom, after the electrical package has already been bid on, and why would it cost less to do a change order through CMR versus DBB?
No, it's not necessarily the specific change that would cost less. It's the volume of changes. So with a DBB job, you bought a set of documents. That's it. But if it's either on the drawings or it's not on the drawings. On a CMR procurement, you bought a project. You bought design intent. So if those data drops were generally intended on the drawings, yet they weren't shown completely, you would that change would be within the GMP on the CMR side, but more than likely a change on the DBB side. That's the
Leo, what you're talking about is an owner request scope change.
Yeah.
And what Jim is talking about is a scope change having to do with what's in the documents versus what isn't in the documents. With a CM, you're basically buying the project before it's completely designed. And then they account for that by putting in qualifications and assumptions, and then they also have their contingency in there to account for what isn't in the documents. And whereas with the DBB, it's basically if it's not shown clearly in the documents, then they don't own it. So so if there's something missing, we really need a solid set of documents, because once it's bid, those are the numbers. So I just to be clear, so the CM at risk has that contingency, but that's not for the owner to use. That's for the CM to use, and with approval. But that's their bucket of money to account for holes in the documents.
Just trying to understand better.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's a very good question.
As you can see, I've had some change orders
They exist on it. They
You're not
exist
alone,
on every project, Leo. It's part of the deal.
Yeah, but like, I'll give you a for instance. Let's say you build a $200 million high school 10 years ago. So I narrowed it down for you which one it is. And you don't put janitorial slop sinks on every floor.
Ooh.
So who owns that, right?
It depends on the intent, right? If the drawing showed somehow that intent, the CM would own it. If it didn't show intent, neither person would own it.
The intent was not to clean the floors. That's all I
We had something like that on the public safety building. There was a question about caulking, I think, on some of the exterior fascia. And I think the town ended up eating the cost because it wasn't detailed.
You know, with we've done, I mean, the public safety building and the DPW were both Chapter 149 projects. You know, typically that's how we've operated here in Medfield. Just to give you sort of my 2 cents on this, and people are certainly welcome to have their own opinion, but this is a really simple project. It's in regards to construction. It's a greenfield site, isolated, easily isolated from the existing operations. It is something that doesn't have complex phasing or logistics. It's not an ad renovation. You know, all those types of things. If this project were at Dale Street, I wouldn't even entertain Chapter 149 because it's too tight a site. There's too much going on there that could affect the operations of the schools. And certainly the ad reno would be would definitely call for a CM, just because you get a much sort of higher level of attention and a builder that's focused, you know, on those complex logistics and phasing, and definitely a different class of builder. That said, with a simple project like this on a greenfield site, easily isolated from the existing operations, I'm not sure personally that it justifies paying a premium for a CM. You know, we've Jim and I had a long conversation about this. He's obviously expressed his reservations about that, and I told him I'd certainly let them present tonight and give their opinions, because it's obviously respected, and we hired them for a reason. So that said, you know, I personally don't think that a CM on a project this simple is justified for the additional premium. Anyone have any thoughts, opinions, comments?
I mean, yeah, Mike, it's Walt. I'm just gonna add a few comments. I feel like as a committee member and in my profession, I only do CM at work, so I wanted to offer up some comments. You know, the takeaways from Jim's presentation, it is a much more collaborative experience. You know, and to me, this path forward to budget and path forward to the cheapest cost, there's 2 ways to do it. You bid the document, you do the documents, you bid the job, and you really hope for good results. The CM approach is really, you know, to do estimates, to do value engineering and drive towards a budget, drive towards a GMP. So to me, this decision is all about the cheapest, getting not the cheapest, but the least cost option for the town with the most value in the building, right? I think that's where it comes down to.
But Walt, I'll give a good example, you know, and why one of the reasons, you know, we tend to be more pro CM at risk than lump sum and design bid build. So Walt and I are doing, so we're doing 2 GMPs with Gilbane right now, one in Marblehead and one in Brookline. I happen to be closer to the Brookline project. I would say I'm probably the lead PM there. And we are supposed to start construction on 5/1. And we had our 90% CD estimate complete. We knew where we were. We're all set to start the bidding. And we had released site work first. And lo and behold, because we released site work early, we realized that there was a site work bust of somewhere between 1.5 and 2.5 million. If this was done on a design bid build basis, we wouldn't have known that we were $2.5 million over until 5/1, when the design bid build general contractor was already, on site ready to go. And we'd have to blow a yellow flag and say, it's nice you're on here, but we have to take $2.5 million out of the project. So those are the types of things of working collaboratively with ACM on a job that we're going through this $2.5 million right now with Walt and Brookline. That is the risk you do away with. There is a premium to having Walt come along on the trip. No offense, Walt, but there are good reasons for it.
Yeah. So that, the cost is one discussion. I think schedule is another discussion. And I'm not intimate with the schedule for this project, as you guys are. One of the big advantages we would bring is we would release not just a site package, but we would release a structural package, which gets you concrete and gets you the steel ordered. So there's a good way to get a jump on schedule too. And if that's not a trigger for this job, then that I would not put that in the pro category for CM. So maybe that's something to talk about a little more. We always like the idea that the CMs can be qualified. I think that maybe we can discuss a little bit in the DBB that we're not putting ourselves completely at risk with who we get on these jobs, right? So, and frankly, I don't really know that process very well at all. So I really
we would still be doing pre-qualification for if we choose to go Chapter 149.
Right. So, I see that as a risk to who we open up to a little bit for that. But you guys have done it. I know Compass is very familiar with DBB. I know town prefers it or has done it in the past, I guess. And I completely agree with this. I'm typically involved in larger projects. I'm typically involved with phase projects. It is an occupied campus, so that's a little bit of a trigger for CM, but like you say, it's pretty separated. I think our biggest trigger is the size. We don't see for this type of size, you don't see it a lot in CM, but you do see communities that only go CM, right? And no matter what the size, they'll do a $10 million life safety CM because that's just their preferred delivery method. So, for this size of the scale, I can easily see it being a DBB project. I just wanted to talk about a little bit of my experience from the CM side. So I guess my biggest question is, are there schedule crunches based on this decision? And is there any concerns with who we, ultimately end up with a bidder as low bid?
So I'll let Jim and Lynn talk about the schedule implications, and there's really kind of three paths I think that we were looking at. But in regards to who might bid and who we might target and make some phone calls to make sure that we can get them interested, hopefully. There's definitely probably at least 4 GCs that we've worked with. Tim, I don't know if you know of any others, but Fontaine, Brait, Colantonio, Agostini, that I think we'd be comfortable with building this project. But Tim, any other ones I'm forgetting?
No, I mean, those are the guys that we would see probably on this size, and and they have to have a bonding capacity for it and DCAM capacity and all. So we'd have to check. I think there are guys that come in from Connecticut and some of those other places, but I think it's, first of all, Jim, I agree with I think your presentation was well done, and there's nothing in it that, I think it was the right presentation to give everybody. I think the end, when you talk about the best, the project is most suitable for, those descriptions were really the accurate, and those are the ones I think we should focus on. So this is, we basically do probably half, well, we do more than half of our work CM volume wise, but probably more than half of our work design, bid, build project wise, right. Number of projects. And I think we always take the approach that what is the best, is the project difficult enough through either phasing or if there's a particular schedule issue that merits that premium, paying for that service, because CM is really a service that you pay for, and design bid build is a commodity that you bid and like, you know, whoever has the best price for the documents is shown. So if you can show it all in the documents as much as you can in this business, which is, you know, difficult anyway. You know, the savings you get on design bid build in our experience is at least that 5%. The MSBA did a survey which, you know, I know, and I, you know, I get a lot of, I don't believe their numbers either, but they have a survey that says it's 10% better cost price wise. Medfield did design bid build on the high school project, which was a difficult phased renovation addition. It was just a mess, a bear of a project. We didn't have CM at risk, and we ended up with a crappy GC that it was just a disastrous project. I agree with Mike that if this was Dale Street ad reno, we would definitely want to do CM at risk. But 2004 did add the pre-qualification to the construction reform. And now, you know, we're doing the Natick Middle School. We actually recommended they go CM at risk, and the committee there decided to go design bid build, and because it is a kind of a difficult phase project. Great Brothers is doing a great job on it. They're going to finish it. They have finished it on, you know, the first phase on time, and the school's occupied. We're doing Middleborough High School with Fontaine, which is $100+ million there. That's an easy in the sense that it's building the school behind the existing school and taking down the old school. And, you know, so I think when I look at this project, and I take what Gus says very much to heart about the cost of what this town is willing to pay for, we're already going to be in a tax, an average tax impact that's going to be much greater than we're seeing on our projects at Compass. Generally speaking, we're not seeing them in the $900 average home range. And we have to make extremely competitive argument for whatever tax dollars we ask for. And I just can't see paying a 5% premium on a project that right now isn't that complex for to justify that premium. It's not, you know, pre-qualification. We're not going to, there are a number of crappy GCs out there. I think some of us, you know, people know them here, and we were not going to pre-qualify them, and we never have. And we'll get down to, you need 2 competitive and eager bidders on a project to make a good bid. And so that's my feeling on it. It just isn't worth, we just don't have the luxury of going and paying an extra premium for CM in this town where we're going to have a struggle getting people to support the tax override as it is.
Jim, Lynn, do you want to just roll through the schedule implications of this? I know we looked at just a straight regular DBB where no early package, nothing, which Jim referenced about some potential for issues with an award that would happen in the middle of winter, which can be challenging. A second scheme, which would involve an early site prep package. Doing early packages with DBB is a little more complicated, but it can be done. We did it on the DPW project. We did an early site package, mainly because the DPW was doing a bunch of the work. But that did help save us a little bit there. So it can be done. And then the third schedule is a CMR schedule.
Yeah.
So I think, go ahead, Lynn, sorry.
The 2 with the early packages, the CM at risk and the DBB with an early site package, can get us to a September of 2024 school opening. The other, when we go strictly linear with it and we don't get our bids back until the end of, you know, December timeframe, puts us in a position that we may lose some months on the startup of construction, and could put us beyond even a mid-year move. So I had shown that as really a September 2025 school opening because you're going to lose some months in there. It won't take that amount of time to build the school if you were starting at an optimal time, but just based on when you're starting and when you may end up, it just it ends up being about 30 months to get to a fall school opening. I mean, that could be mitigated if the district wanted to move, say, February vacation or April vacation or something like that.
So again, based on the way the dates are falling, a straight DBB doesn't get us into September of 24. A package that Mike's mentioned, that I've mentioned, that does an early site package with DBB. So there'd be two prime contractors, right? There'd be a prime site contractor. That person would be hired and go away, and then the GC would be hired. If we were able to do that, we think we could straddle it and still get folks in for September of 24.
So the key with that approach, as Jim noted, with two prime contracts, is identifying the scopes of work clearly, such that there's a very clear point where one contract leaves off and one picks up. So that's something that we'd have to spend some time really drilling down with the design team to make sure that is clearly defined in the two packages.
I don't know enough about it like you guys do, the schedule, but it's hard for me to think with a flat site like this that you're going to pick up that much time with an early site. The critical path runs from the foundations through, the building, not sort of a special foundations or anything like that. I find it, I'm not sure. You probably need the time to let out the site package within the GC package to get the time to get the steel bought and engineered and fabricated. I'm not sure that there's any benefit in creating that mess of a double prime on this project. It's not the same. Like, I just don't know why would that even pick up time?
The thing is,
the site's not really going to be on the critical path. I mean, it is, but it's not that long of a task.
We're talking about, go ahead, Lynn.
If you did an early site package, you may be in a position that you could keep going with foundations during the winter. Whereas if you didn't get bids on the entire package until the end of December timeframe, you're more than likely you're going to wait till the spring to start.
Right.
Also, it's a winter start that you're trying to push the early.
Right. The bids don't come in till like December. And, we're not going to start January 1. So if we got some site work going in the fall to then kick it off in April, a 4-month delay there, that's what we're trying to.
Yeah, and it's not ideal, obviously. I mean, obviously.
No, but that's how it's lining up right now.
Well, the winters haven't been that bad recently. We're working pretty much through all the winters right now, but I agree. No, that's obviously the worst time to start a project, no question. Yeah. But I think that I don't know whether that timing benefit is worth. I mean, we could do a prime package, but you're talking about doing more than just site work. Then you're talking about getting foundations going. I mean, that's not.
I think the January 1 buy would allow us to then release foundations and steel, so we start, March 15th or April 1st or something.
So, I mean, the other notion here is that, what are the impacts of, even if we did keep a straight DBB approach and we just let the design team complete their design, recognizing that we're pushing now back the start of the construction into the spring instead of the fall, and opening the building later. What are the impacts of that?
Well, we're going to have additional CA costs for ourselves, for the architect, additional GCs for the contractor. The project, just continues to drone on. We're talking about 25 now. I don't know when we started, but it's a long process.
Not to mention if we moved halfway during the year, the disruption that would be too.
Yep.
I've seen projects with enabling packages all the time. I mean, splitting out that scope I know, Tim, you thought it was a arduous process. I didn't.
Well, for design bid build, you have to, I mean, you have to let them, you know, they each have to be led on a chapter 149 process. And I just don't know that you're gonna get that by, I mean, they're gonna clear that site and get, that can't be more than a month's worth of work.
Utility services that need to be done, but also your over foundation and putting in structural fill and being ready to start the day the contractor comes on board with foundations, as opposed to, having to do all that work just to get to the point of.
Get undergrounds done. I mean, it's
utilities. That's not going to be on the critical path. Utility work. I don't see you're going to buy that much time with an early package. I mean, I definitely see the problem. I mean, if it's a winter like if it's right now, they're not going to start work, so they'll wait till the snow clears, and that's going to be March, and then that's not even a good time to start site work. And so I definitely see it as being a difficult process. I just, I don't know. I mean, the mid-year move, they could be ready for the mid-year move if everything went well, but it would be tight.
Well, again, if we're talking about putting off the project for a year because of this approach, then we would have to look at early packages, Tim.
How would they look?
Stupid not to.
How would the CM? Yeah, I mean, if we had to, we'd have to do. I guess we could.
Right.
I'm not sure to buy that much time, but if you did it CM, would you be ready to do? Has Larry done his design? What would you let a steel package off of? If you don't finish that, you end up with changes related to the final coordination around all that. So like, what would you let the steel package off? 90% CDs?
We typically do it at 60. And we're pushing the steel, and then you have to carry in a contingency to pay for some miscellaneous steel. But that's usually within the budgeting effort.
Because it's going to be the steel and the foundation that you'd let both.
Yeah, because you want steel, foundation, and waterproofing all in one shot. And I agree, the utility stuff is usually coming in afterwards anyway. Most of the under slab stuff is done after the steel is slung, and then the site work can continue or not, depending on how critical a path it is. I think if the issue is schedule, perhaps what we should do is really tease out the schedule issues so that we can prove either DBB works or we need DBB with the site, or
the 60% CDs ready even.
Yeah, I mean, so to me, that would be the question of how do we make it work? Because I would tend to agree with Tim. It's a pretty flat site. The site work, you're going to buy clearing and trenching and the footings, and if you ask for compaction, and then they stop, so you pick up, I don't know, Lynn or Jim, did you guys figure out how much time you pick up in that effort? Is a month, 2 months?
I'm going to try to share the schedules on my screen if I can.
Well, I'm actually, I'm just sort of getting the sense that we need a little more sort of investigation into this, and given the hour that we've come upon, got a few more things to get through. I'm kind of thinking we should table this to the next meeting. There's no urgency to make this decision tonight. Otherwise.
Yeah, I think we should table it too, because I'd like to go through the schedule more.
Yeah, I agree, Mike and Tim, and Larry, let's have a separate schedule, charrette, so to speak, dive into these issues and see how we make, if the wishes of the committee is a DBB, let's see if we can find a way to make that procurement work around the schedule where we get a 9/24 opening.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's table that. Does anybody have any other questions on this before we move on to the next items?
No, I think what Jim just said is perfect. If we can target that 9/24 and the DBB on this site is kind of what we need to try to go for. In my opinion, and that's just me.
Yeah. Thanks,
Right.
Mike.
We'll see if there's a way to make that work. Thanks, Mike.
All right, next up, I'm going to promote Megan Sullivan. Megan has been very patient in listening through a lot of this stuff that she probably cares a little about, but who knows? Megan, can you hear us? Are you there, Megan? We can't hear you.
How's all that?
Oh, there you go. Now we can hear you.
Excellent. Well, I'll just be brief, given the evening, the hour. and
Thanks, we
all the
appreciate
good
that.
stuff. No, it's all good. Our report, and Tom's going to chime in as needed here, is just that, thank you for approving that Thornton Tomasetti work. It's going to be instrumental in our decision. We're nearly done, just a few stragglers of our building performance. Some of the data we need to collect in terms of operating schedules and occupancy numbers. So we're working on that. Gathering data on the test wells, and then reaching out to some vendors about solar options and what it might look like at the new building. Of course, targeting early mid-March to have the data on the use and the costs for a net zero decision, right? And then the only other thing is like the next item on the agenda, which is we're looking forward to the February 25th public forum. And it's tentatively got a working title of Building Performance, What is Net Zero? And then we'll have two elements. We're thinking of an 80-20 split on this. And the first element is really, how does this relate to the Dale Street School project, which is the whole reason to initiate the program. And then I've been thinking and working with the Energy Committee, we're just going to broaden the topic ever so slightly and have 20% of the meeting talk about how you might apply these concepts to your home or your business, with the hope that we can do, a couple things. One is get some more people in the door to hear about the Dale Street project. And then also just in general, be educating people about this concept and how, it's applicable to all the buildings in the world. How's that? So at 7 p.m. on February 25th, Arrow Street's going to do the 80% part, and I'll cover and then work with some people from Eversource to do the other part. And then I thought we can just kind of see how the group is too. And if we have a big enough group and people want to go into breakout sessions, we're going to have breakout sessions at the end, which should be nice.
Thanks, Megan.
We good?
Yeah, anybody have any questions for Megan on that?
Our PR is going to start with we're working with the communications committee. So we're going to put things out starting next Monday, I think. So.
Okay, just FYI, I got a question in the chat from Chris McHugh Potts. Has a sustainability subcommittee looked beyond just energy issues?
So I will take a stab at that, and then other people can chime in. Chris, at this moment, we have not looked beyond that, but actually talking about the building in terms of building performance, it's the phrase that we got from Arrow Street to think about the whole building and how it's working, whether it's just energy or airflow or the choice of building materials. And so right now our focus is definitely on energy, but with this committee's permission, I think we're going to continue to work and be working on some of the other issues regarding sustainability for the building.
Great, thanks, Megan. And Chris also expressed her appreciation. Thank you for all
You're welcome.
All right, thanks, Megan. Thanks for being patient with us. You can adjourn for the evening.
Sure, thank you.
All right, bear with me here.
I think maybe Anna Mae can give an update on the communication sub.
Hi, folks. Yeah, so since we last met, we had the Office of Campaign and Political Finance do a training for our group. It was very well attended, really just to clarify the lanes of education and advocacy. It was a very detailed training, and the takeaway was get things checked out by them, and they've been very responsive and very accessible. So I'm grateful that we had that training. And the questionnaire, the Wheelock Traffic, Wheelock Neighborhood Questionnaire, we had about 105 respondents, and we had our forum this past Monday, and about 35 attendance roughly. And but I think the big takeaway was how wonderful it was to have the chief of police there as part of the dialogue, and I think that was very much appreciated. We are also going to make every effort to be consistent during this dynamic process, and with monthly updates, you know, through email patch, all our various avenues, and our community partners getting information out there. And lastly, Nicole Drummond resigned from our subcommittee because she is joining the PAC that has started. And other than that, we meet every Thursday at noon, so everyone is welcome.
Well, not everyone, because if we have a quorum, then we got to post the meetings.
All right, there you go.
So if anybody wants to join, please let us know. We don't want to end up with a quorum of the SBC and not have it posted. So
yes, sir.
I just wanted to express my gratitude to Nicole Drummond for her service on the communication subcommittee, and thank her. And I know she's going to continue to fight hard for the schools. That's what she does. So thank you, Nicole. And then also express my gratitude, Anna Mae, as always. You got your plate full, and you always do it with a smile on your face. So thank you for all your hard work on that.
It's the committee. It's a team effort.
Yes.
Thankfully,
yes.
thankfully, like everything else we do, team effort. So thank you.
Yeah. All right, Lynn, schedule update, key meetings and milestones.
I'm just going to give a few important
Sorry,
upcoming.
Tim, go ahead. Hold on. What was that, Tim?
Just to be clear, on the communications committee, it's really Anna Mae. It's like a team effort the way it is with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
No. Take it back.
So I used to have a boss who would say, all right, we need to do this. And that always meant you need to do this. So it's kind of how it goes sometimes. All right. Sorry,
Okay,
Lynn, go ahead.
Some of the important dates coming up is February 11th, the MSBA board meeting on our PSR submission, and the approval to proceed into schematic design.
Lynn,
also,
Lynn, will you notify them that we're no longer pursuing the model schools?
Yes, I will do that tomorrow. And then again, just to reiterate, the February 25th Sustainability Forum, and I'd like to go ahead and move up discussion on the next school building committee meeting. We currently have it tentatively slated for March 10th. Does that work for everyone?
March 10th works for me.
Yep, works.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and get that scheduled. And then the last thing I had for the agenda was the monthly invoice summary. We had 2 invoices this month. Invoice number 17 from Left Field for $5,000, and Arrow Street invoice 727159 for $6,200 for a total of $11,200.
Anybody have any questions on the invoices? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Leo Brem. Do I have a second?
Second, Anna May.
Second from Anna May. Running down the list, Mike Weber,
Approved, yes.
Walt Kincaid,
Yes.
Tom Herb,
Yes.
Anna Mae O'Shea Brook,
Yes.
Jeff Marsden,
Yes.
Leo Brem,
Yes.
Mike Marcucci,
Yep.
Tim Bonfatti,
Yes.
and Mike Quinlan also votes yes.
This puts us at 57% spent in terms of the feasibility study and schematic design budget.
Lynn, if you could get me an updated budget based on the approvals of the Thornton Tomasetti money and the PAL money, just so I can see where we stand.
Yes, I started that, so I'll add, we had added something extra on the Thornton Tomasetti, so I'll revise that and get that to you so you can see where we stand with the contingency money we have left. We have about 49,000.
Thank you.
And that's it for me.
All right, anybody else have any new business from the committee? Questions, comments? All right, not hearing anyone from the public that's still up at this late hour. Would like to ask a question.
Mike, I do have a comment for you, but I can wait.
Sure, go ahead, Larry.
Just thinking, I think if I heard, and sorry, I looked away for a second, the next SBC meeting is March 10th.
That's correct.
As we think, so next week, and first of all, let me say, I appreciate the vote about the model school. I sort of feel like we've been rehired and we're pleased to be here again. But as we think about turning the corner and getting into SD, the MSBA board vote, if I recall correctly, is next week. And really for us, that means, you know, it's often running into schematic design. And as I think Lynn was mentioning, with the goal to finish up by end of March, or excuse me, end of June submission to the MSBA, such that they can process it, look at it in August, give us a board vote in August that approves the project scope and budget, and then is put in front of the town sometime in September at a special town meeting. Again, just thinking holistically. We probably need to think, and we should work with Left Field as well as the working group about the frequency of the meetings, because I think there's going to be a lot of decisions that we're going to have to get to pretty quickly, and particularly as the information starts coming in on the net zero and the traffic and some other issues that we've been tracking a little bit ahead of schedule in sense of trying to keep things moving along. But just to kind of put that on people's radar screens, and not to say that we want to be doing this on a weekly basis, because that's a tough pace to keep up with, but we may need to get something that's a little more frequent than once a month. So I just wanted to put that out there, kind of stay tuned and let us work on a little bit more holistic schedule with Left Field and get you guys some dates that we think make sense in terms of decision timing for as we're trying to develop the work.
Yeah, it's appreciated, Larry. And, you know, let us know. We will look to Left Field and Arrow Street to guide us there. And so your leadership in that is what we'll work towards. So if we need to go to bi-weekly or something, I think the committee would be willing to do that. But I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I know everybody has a lot of meetings, but this is important. So
yeah, and just targeting for when exactly those happen. We don't want to waste people's time, but by the same token, there will be decisions that we have to go through and get sign off on from this group.
Sure.
Could I?
Thanks.
Could I? Just. Yep. Are we too late to get an article in the town meeting for this spring on if we wanted to get some additional design money? Because what's happening now is Larry's going to stop schematic design and then pencils down for like 2 months or more till we pass a bill, till we pass the overall.
Yeah.
And so, you know, which is 2 months that we really probably could use to keep to a schedule. Or 3 months, and I don't know what that would cost to do, and it's at risk, you know, because obviously we'd spend the money, it wouldn't be reimbursed unless the project passed, but we're doing this on a couple of projects, getting towns are willing to go and get interim funding, you know, 2 months of schematic design. Larry, what do you think? I mean, design development?
Oh, I wouldn't have, I would hesitate to give you a number now, but we could give you
that, and then see what that might be. And then, I don't know, is it too late to get Mike or Christine?
No, it's not too late.
Because it might be enough money. It might be just 2 months we could really use to get.
Yeah, I think to Tim's point, there is that downtime in the normal MSBA process that you've finished schematic design, but then you're going through the MSBA board meetings and then you're going for a town vote. Often towns do proceed, and what we did in Ashland is the town committed to funding certain activities to be able to allow the design team to proceed at risk a little bit. You know, we did do some geotech borings and some test pits and things like that that allowed us to save a couple of months. So that there is a benefit to that. And I think that's a great idea, Tim, just to get those numbers, and then we can talk about whether that can get into springtime.
Once you submit the schematic design according to the schedule that's in the report anyways, which is in June, you know, we'll get feedback that we're on the right trail from them, right track. And then we're not starting design development until 9/15, and that assumes we organize a very fast town meeting in early September, which is awfully early, but that's what we'll probably have to do. But if we could pick up that extra 3 months, it would make a big difference in the schedule. We're doing that in Westwood actually too, design development.
So that's worth looking at in terms of the holistic schedule we were talking about a short while ago.
Yeah, right.
Mike or Christine, any thoughts on that?
And presumably that would be rolled into the eventual bond, and so whatever money was spent would be reimbursed to whatever account it came out of.
Yes. Yeah, it would have to work so that obviously it doesn't make sense if it needs an override or something. It would have to be able to be found within the debt limit.
I've been working on the warrant tonight, so I'll just pencil you in.
Does that sound like something you'd be okay with, Mike? Or we'll get the numbers together and then we can talk about it. And what would be our deadline to get something into the warrant?
Well, I mean, the warrant's open for another couple of weeks, and then you can fill in the details once the article is in there. I mean, I think it depends on how I mean, if it's going to be something that's reimbursable through the bond, it's less of an issue. It's not just because we're obviously there's not like there's money floating around. So, but if it's just a timing issue, we had talked about this last year, but this had come up, and we thought about doing this, building this into the schedule last year. So I think it makes sense if it's going to save us some time and keep moving things along. So I think conceptually, depending what the number is and all the rest of it, it's worth at least talking about. I mean, you can always put it in the warrant and take it off if we decide not to. So it doesn't have to.
Maybe put a placeholder in.
Yeah.
So
I can hold a placeholder now for it.
Thank you. So one of the keys, like we literally just went through this with Ashland, one of the keys for them was in order to maintain the schedule, it wasn't so much about the architectural, it was really structural. They needed to get the geotech reports done to get enough information to the structural engineer to keep them on track from a schedule perspective. Because the architectural design was okay and they were in good shape there, but it was really key for civil and structural because of the testing and things that would need to happen on site to complete that information. So, Larry, I don't know if you'd agree with that, but that's certainly what we encountered in Ashland, and it worked out well.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I was thinking was some of the permitting issues can take time, and if those can be advanced in, for instance, site plan review, but that requires the civil guys to be further along than you might ordinarily be.
Right.
So I think it's all worth talking about. I do understand the risk, because if the override doesn't pass in September, then, you know, that's money that has been spent. So,
right.
But yeah, we could put together some numbers and I think holistically review it against the overall schedule and then see what the risk factor is.
Yeah, and sort of a mini work plan of what's the scope of work that we would achieve in that time frame.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we could work on that.
It looks like 3 months of design development.
Yeah.
It also helps with the programming.
Right.
Great. All right, so we will revisit that at our next meeting. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask Bob, who is our representative from the warrant committee, if he had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, Bob, what do you think?
Yeah, coming in there, I just, no, that sounds fine. I think we can, it makes sense. And as Mike and Christine mentioned, that we got the time to do it, so we could put that together and I'll bring it to the committee.
Great. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
All right. I have one more question from Chris McHugh Potts. When will the MSBA, actually it's 2 questions, excuse me. When will the MSBA feedback on PSR be posted on the website, and also completed site survey? So I imagine once we have the finalized responses to the MSBA comments, we'll be able to post those, which I believe are going in Monday. Is that right, Lynn?
Yes, they are. Tomorrow I'll be compiling them and then sending them out for review.
Okay. And then the completed site survey?
It's essentially done now. We're finalizing it with the surveyors, and you know, we have the drawing, we have the CAD drawing, so we're pretty well good to go on that. There is an issue, Mike, to catch up with you on, but other than that, we're all set.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So once we receive that, it'll be posted to the website, so that should be relatively soon. Okay. Well, that's all we have for this evening. I know it's been a long one, but I thought there was some great discussion tonight, and I appreciate everybody's input. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Jeff.
Second.
I have a motion
Leo.
from Jeff and a second from Leo. Running through the list: Mike Weber.
Yep.
Walt Kincaid.
Yes.
Tom Erb.
Yes.
Anna Mae O'Sheabrook.
Yes.
Jeff Marsden.
Yes.
Leo Brem.
Abstain. I'm turning over a new leaf here. I'm making history.
Right, it can't be unanimous, right?
He's having too good a time. He doesn't want the meeting to end.
Wait till the next school committee meeting.
You've changed your background, Leo. You just want people to enjoy that.
Yes.
No, I finally finished fixing up my
All right.
basement.
All right. Mike Marcucci.
Yes.
Tim Bonfatti.
Yes.
And Mike Quinlan also votes yes. Thanks for the laugh, Leo.
Yes for Leo.
Yeah. All right, everybody have a great night. Thank you
Good night,
all.
everybody.
Oh, thank
Have a
you.
good night.